Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. My name is John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Thanks for downloading this episode of the podcast. Rich Roddman is an accomplished editor, colorist, and digital imaging technician with more than 30 years of professional experience. He advises a variety of clients in purchasing equipment and software for field and post-production, along with developing workflows to optimize the time and visual quality of their projects. Before moving to Florida, Rich was the senior editor for a production company in New York and New Jersey. His company, Silverbox Studios, is located in Largo, Florida, and they specialize in commercials, digital media, independent films, and more. Before we talk to Rich, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the Film Florida podcast. If you're not already a member, please consider joining Film Florida at filmflorida.org. Finally, we still have our Film Florida merchandise page. Go to teespring.com/stores/Film Florida to purchase Film Florida t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, and protective masks as well. And now here's my conversation with Rich Roddman. Thanks for joining us on the Film Florida podcast, Rich.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So what's your backstory? Where did you come from?
Well, originally, I'm from the New York City area. I was working for a small ad agency up in New York, and about almost 20 years ago, I ended up coming down to Florida, and then started working with a small firm here. And that's when the Red cameras and Alexa cameras started coming out and required technicians to be out in the field because they were basically computers with lenses on it. And the transition from going from old video cameras or film cameras to this new computerized system was everybody needed a little help to get it to look properly. So that's kind of how I started being a DIT.
And did you, early in your career, did you know this was kind of the industry for you? Or, I mean, how did you find your way into the industry?
Well, in the industry, actually, I got kind of lucky. When I was back in college, I was actually started off college to be a psychologist, and ended up taking this elective in television because it seemed like fun. It just came very simple to me, very natural. And I asked the professor, "Hey, can you actually have a career with this?" And he lied and said, "Yes, you can make money." And fooled me. And ever since then, I've been doing this. So I love every part of it. You know, there's no part of this production and storytelling that I don't enjoy participating in.
Now, you're an editor, a colorist, and a digital imaging technician, like you said, or a DIT. I think most people know what an editor and a colorist does, but a DIT is a little bit more specialized. So help people understand what a digital imaging technician does.
The DIT or a DIT can have multiple roles on set. Foremost, you're the extra eyes for the DP. You're monitoring the signal. You're making sure the camera settings are the way they're supposed to be for the project. You're looking at making sure the look of the camera is the way that the DP is wanting it to be. You're making sure he's not clipping in the brights or in shadows or anything like that. So you're monitoring the signal. You're also responsible for the footage once it comes out of the camera to make sure you've got multiple copies, make sure that it's, again, there's no damage, it's not corrupted in any way. And then to make sure that it's to sync the sound to it so that all the sound and the quality is there, and then making dailies for the post editing and stuff like that so that people can go and start the whole workflow, which technically the post begins as soon as they start cutting. So as soon as they hit cut on the set.
Now, translate that to the old film days. Is there an equivalent position back when everything was shot on film, or is this kind of a combination of multiple roles from those days?
It's a little bit of a combination, but the best way that I describe what a DIT does on set is when we shot everything on film, they would pack it up at the end of the day and ship it to the film lab. Well, the DIT card is now the film lab. Everything that happened at the film lab happens right there on set now on the DIT card.
Okay. And so, the technology is always changing. So this is a widely vague question, and that's on purpose because I want you to take it wherever you want. What has been the biggest change in the industry over the last decade from your perspective?
To answer that quite honestly, I think the biggest change has just recently happened back in February. They announced Frame.io is a website announced with Teradek, and which is people in the business know is a wireless transfer system you'd have from cameras to monitors, and with sound devices, which is the big everybody uses for on-set recording on their sound,
Right.
on their devices or mixers there. The camera to cloud technology, camera to cloud opportunity, where literally as soon as you hit cut on the camera, it's sent from the camera to the DIT wirelessly through the Teradek. And then the DIT has a Teradek device that will send it automatically up to the cloud, where an editor anywhere in the world will immediately have that clip show up on in their bin and can start editing that scene automatically with the sound files from the mixer. So the editor will have the shot, have a proxy of the shot, and have all the individual channels that he can start editing right away. And if you have two cameras, it will recognize the time code of the cameras and give you an A/B with sync sound automatically, so that you can start doing multicam cutting again seconds after they call cut. It's going to be a game changer, as this is going to be the way field production is done, not just for bigger productions, but it's going to trickle down to almost everyday kind of stuff. And it's really changing the game, how we do things.
And so the obvious follow-up then is, where do you see things going over the next decade or so?
Everything's going to be moving to the cloud. I know a lot of people are nervous about the cloud or doing up there, but the pipeline is going to go through the cloud. Now, that doesn't mean we're still not going to have a need for hard drives and cameras, because the original camera footage still needs to be linked back to the project in the back end to get the full quality and the colored space and all of that. But most of the process is going to take place through the cloud as bandwidths get bigger and we get more fiber connected to, people, fiber running to people's houses or businesses, and the storage space in the cloud just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. That's going to be where everything's going to be kept. And then on the back end of that, we still go old school. When we're done with our projects, we back everything up to LTO, and we're up to LTO 9 now, which can hold 12 terabytes, 18 terabytes of one cassette tape and have a 30-year shelf life. So, storing stuff on hard drives has always been dangerous, because, most people sit them and put them in a closet where they don't have electricity running through them. And 6-8 months later, they start decaying because there's no electricity. You got to keep those drives plugged in to keep them as safe as possible. So that's not a good way to store it. So everything's going to be in LTO in the cloud and on tape.
Do we ever hit a ceiling in terms of bandwidth and speed and size?
As compression ratios get better, as you can add more and more servers on there, I really don't see that happening, to be quite honest with you. Obviously, we're not uploading the full uncompressed, Alexa files or RED files. We're still just doing proxies at this point in time. But as technology advances, when they can start actually storing data codes into light streams, the amount of storage is going to be more than we can even fathom at this point in time.
So let's talk products, whether it's on the editing side, the colorist side, the DIT side. I mean, what are your favorites? What are your recommendations for people in the industry?
I've been working with a 2019 Mac Pro, which is just a beast. It's got 192 gigs of RAM in it. It's got a 16 core processor and two 32 gig GPU cards. So it eats 8K footage like it's butter. It just rips right through stuff. And we started to need that because when you go in the field, you really never know what you're going to face. It could be, sometimes we're doing projects where I have like 5 or 6 RED cameras that we're having to process. So we need that kind of power to work with. A lot of things that people I see are cut short on are monitors. People start using, computer monitors or just what's looking at the UI to try to make decisions on stuff like that. And that's not an accurate picture. So having a monitor like a Flanders Scientific or a Sony to show you the true signal is very important, because otherwise you're just guessing, because the computer is saying it should look something like this, but we're not going to promise anything, as opposed to having a real monitor to tell you. And then obviously, always checking everything through your scopes, your waveforms, your vector scopes, because they will never lie to you. The monitors will lie to you, your eyes will lie to you, but scopes never lie. So you always want to check everything versus your scopes.
We've come a long way from DVDs back in the day for storage, and I mean the monitors. You're absolutely right. I mean, I got my start originally in post production, a lifetime ago, and monitors were always the argument of which one is accurate, which one is the best. You have clients that see something in the edit suite and then they go home and watch something, of course, on their VHS tape from that time and say, this didn't look anything like it does in the edit suite. And so monitors will always be the most argued thing.
One of the other things, that, particularly with monitors now, the next tsunami coming our way is high dynamic range. We've are slowly adjusting to the 4K or Ultra HD file size. We're about to make a transition moving from a Rec 709 color space into the Rec 2020 color space, which is going to expand the colors that you're able to see on television, so that you will never see there's colors that you will never have seen before on a screen, because the color space just never allowed for them. Now you'll be allowed to see those colors. And then we're adding on top of that high dynamic range. So, there used to be a brightness level from 0 to 100, and they've just expanded that from 0 to 1,000. So you're going to see shades and shadows and things and details that were never able to be seen before. And that's just the first step. After 1,000, they're going to bump it to 3,000, and they have there are companies experimenting where the level's at 10,000, which is like almost bright as the sun. So it's there's still all this change in just monitoring how we see things. That's going to be coming our way. That's just, again, going to be changing everybody's world and what their expectations were. It's far from that old little TV set that you had in the corner of the kitchen where you could just barely make out the football game on a Saturday.
Exactly. So, Rich, I talked to your colleague, Patrick Inhofer, earlier in season 3 of the podcast, and we talked a lot about the industry being too easy for people to call themselves a DP or a colorist. And with the cost of technology continuing to drop, do you worry that people's standards are also being lowered?
I've been worried about that for a while, because back when I started, when we would do a commercial and we'd send it to the station, there was always an engineer there where if you were at 101 IREs or your audio levels were just a little too hot, they would pull your spot. And you had to make sure that you were in the legal areas to have that done. Now with YouTube and a lot of other online people just watching stuff like that, those parameters have kind of been thrown out the window, and people don't know what's legal video and not legal video anymore. Those all kind of a gray area, or that's not being taught. So yes, it's a little difficult that people don't seem to understand how, what it is to actually get a good picture. But on the flip side of that, that kind of is a benefit. That's kind of like what I offer people to do. Most people know how to edit 80% of the way of their project, 85%. It's that last 10, 15% that can't get it to look right, whether it's the color or whether it's an editing technique or something along those lines. They just don't have the experience to get them that way. And that's what I offer to be able to do, is be able to work with them, so their client doesn't, the client just, all they see is them. They don't know that I'm there, but I'm helping them deliver what they promised to the client. So the client, they look golden in the client's eyes, and the client doesn't know any better.
And your company, Silverbox Studios, is located in Largo, Florida, in Pinellas County. Tell me about the company.
Well, as I said, we're a business-to-business company. We offer DIT services on set, and then we offer the post services of editing and color grading. This way, we can actually work throughout the whole process. We can start the post-production actually starting on set, getting everything ready for editing and process so everything looks proper, going through the setup, and then finally delivering with the coloring. And then after the coloring, also being able to create the deliverables that you're looking for, whether you're going to Netflix or a DCP to show in a movie theater or something along those lines. So again, those are all techniques that a lot of people are not familiar with how to do. So these are where we help them, local companies out, to help them reach their final goal.
And tell people where they can learn more about Silverbox Studios.
You can see us on our website. It's silverboxstudios.com. It shows us, we break it down into different sections of DIT work or editing or color grading. You can see a bunch of the films that we've worked on in the past, different TV series and stuff like that, some of the commercials we've worked on. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Roddman. That's RODDMAN. You can see I take a lot of pictures from sets, just showing different angles and different stuff that we're doing, because that's one of the beauties of this job. It's always different. Every week, something different. You're on a different set, a different place, different challenges. That's what makes this job so great.
Thanks for being on the Film Florida podcast, Rich.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Film Florida podcast. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Check out the Film Florida merchandise at teespring.com/stores/Film Florida, and please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.